Okay, for this next little part, I'm going to show you how to quickly create a set of rocks or just rocks using a credit card. So you want to start with some good, it's what my grandma would say, some good juicy color. And I'm mixing two different blues and I just to give it some more values. And I'm going to use this credit card. I'm going to push the paint and scrape it around. And it's actually not a credit card, it's a piece of plastic that I got in the mail, and it's not working very well for this, but it gives you the basic idea of how you can kind of push it around. And you use the edge of the credit card and you scrape up paint. There, that one turned out better because you have the highlights and the shadows. But look, you can scrape up the paint, make it look like grass, and it turns out pretty cool. Just using an old credit card or piece of plastic works a lot better. You just have to be careful not to cut the paper. Okay, so here I'm trying to show you where my sketch initially was, but you can't really see it, which is okay because you don't really want to see your pencil marks in a watercolor painting anyways. That's why I suggest you draw as lightly as possible. Now I'm creating my third layer here, and I've gradually added more pigment, more paint into my pool of water because I want to gradually make these mountains get darker as they come forward. Now I'm bringing the paint down, pulling the wash down so that it blends nicely, and slowly building up the values. And you gotta let it dry or else it's gonna bleed and make a big mess and it doesn't look cool. Okay, so now onto layer 4. Again, gradually adding more paint to my water. And it's still very translucent. You can see the other layers in the background. And you can tell I'm using my paintbrush at an angle to try to get a straight horizon line. That is not easy to do, but it just adds character into this painting. So these mountains are the closest ones, so they're going to be somewhat darker. And now I just did that because it doesn't have to dry. Now we're going to be adding in the reflections of the mountains onto the lake because this is a cute little mountain lake scene that I'm creating here. Now, just gradually, randomly adding in brush strokes so that it leaves some of the lighter values that were already there, and then adding in darker values because water is not flat. Water has many different facets to it, and that's what gives the illusion of that this is water. So with that being wet, I can go in and add some more values, add some darker and lighter, and I'm blotting it here because it was too wet, and then I didn't like the way that looked, so then I added water and just brushed over the top of it, which you can do too, but you don't want to mess with it too much because if you mess with it too much, it's going to mess up the paper. So after letting it dry again, we're going to create the foreground. And, well, since this is a monochromatic painting, I'm using just blues, but I'm using different shades of blue. And I'm also adding in some purple to make my values even darker. And I'm making it blue-violet. So that's okay. You can do that too. I'm creating this little uneven ground, and I'm using this piece of cardboard credit card thing to push and scrape my paper around, or the paint around my paper. Creating interesting shapes. It could possibly be rocks, throwing in some grass using the edge of the credit card. Now what makes these rocks look like rocks is that you have a highlight and a shadow. So I'm throwing in some more shadows here. And it's okay that it's wet because it just adds to the effect. Now I keep scraping that same area, and this isn't the best quality paper, so you have to be really careful when it gets wet and you're scraping the same area. I just did that again. I'll show you here. It scrapes up the paper. So now I got like this little blob of paper where I scraped and almost scraped a hole. So now let's paint a tree. That's not how you paint a tree. It's not a big upside down TP thing or whatever. I want you to do some research and look at what do trees really look like? Google, hey, look at those trees. So starting with some blues and purples and just using the tip of a round brush and the top of the tree, and gradually adding in branches. Now it's harder to explain exactly how I'm doing this other than you just watching. So I'm just going to let you watch. I want you to really look at and really pay attention to the negative space that you're leaving between the branches, because that is what's going to give you the most realistic looking, most suggestive looking tree. So you got to have the space between. Now I go back in, I blotted up some of the color to lighten an area, and I added some more back in. But anyways, now let's paint our tree. I'm going to get my blues and I'm going to get my purples, and I splattered on the painting. You just daub it up. And starting at the top, I'm going to paint a happy little tree, just like Bob Ross would say. And it works best, I'm using a round brush, and I'm using the tip of my round brush. And here I pulled a little extra moisture out of the base of the brush. Okay. So you really want to focus on leaving that negative space so that you can see through the branches of the tree, and adding in different values, because trees aren't necessarily completely flat, but we are working more from a silhouette looking reference. But it just gives it some really nice visual interest by adding in some more highlights and some more shadows. So, and then here I remembered that I wanted to add trees on this last hill here. And to do that, I'm just adding some more paint back in, and I'm going to use my flat square brush and use it on its side to gradually add in some little trees. You can see here the technique of just pulling up the shape on the side using the angle of the brush. I didn't like that one. Just dab it out, add in some more paint, and continue adding in some trees using the edge of the brush. This is a very simple, fun technique for creating a landscape scene. These come together really quickly. You can do whatever your imagination, wherever it wants to take you, or use a reference or something from vacation, or your favorite place, or purely your imagination. It's whatever you want to make of it.